It's so nice to be here. I just want to, it's so wonderful and beautiful to be with the Pardes community as a very, very passionate alumnus. And it's just wonderful to see you all and have a chance to learn with you. And for those of you who don't have video on, consider putting your video on so that we can see you. I'm just saying it's good to see each other's faces and it's quite beautiful. And we all have been in lockdown, so there's no judgment about, you know. And you can also all eat. Please feel free to eat. That's very, very important. It's 12:30 and it, for some of us, sorry, for some of us, it was very East Coast centric. For some of us, it's 12:30 and therefore lunchtime, so feel free to eat. For others, it's dinner time, just eat. It's good. We can't hear you chewing. Okay, so my friends, I'm gonna confess some things because that's what I like to do. Those of you who know me know, I like to confess. And I'm gonna confess that this is actually my first time teaching this particular shiur. And that is actually quite scary, but I thought, oh my goodness, these are all people who I've learned with, thank God, so many times. I can't do something I already have. I have to create something new. So it's, we'll see if it works, okay? But really this shiur is actually motivated by a gorgeous, absolutely stunning midrash that I found a couple weeks ago. And from one midrash, we built many midrashim and a shiur from this, but it's actually an attempt to show you 3 or 4 of the most gorgeous, interesting, and I don't think midrashim that get a lot of play about the relationship between Miriam and Moshe, between Moshe and Aaron, between Aaron and Moshe. I'm doing that specifically. I know they're the same person, but how that works out. And then between Miriam, Moshe, and Aaron together. And really sort of the theme of today's Yom Iyun is holy relationships. And I think the sibling relationship is among the most holy, incredibly powerful. There's a tremendous amount to say about it. Obviously, there are many ways to take siblinghood in terms of both the Tanakh and Halakha, and there's all of these very fascinating and important conversations about how we treat our siblings and how they are like parents to us, right? Sometimes when they're older, and what that means and how we have those relationships. And of course, what I want to also point out is that Breshit, right, Genesis, is replete with problematic sibling relationships. You know, and again and again and again in the story of the Jewish people, we have to watch siblings be left by the wayside, and then those siblings become their own nations, and then our relationships remain muddied with those siblings until we get to, of course, Yaakov, which obviously there are tremendous sibling problematics with Yaakov's sons, but it's an interesting phenomenon wherein that is where we see that problematics with siblings do not mean that those siblings have to leave and become their own nations, but can remain within the nation. Of course, don't let me whitewash it for you. Of course, we still see problematics of sibling rivalry among the tribes that last for generations and become problematic. So we have a sort of a checkered history with siblinghood in the Jewish tradition. And what's interesting is Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam also do not have to break away, grow up apart from one another in majorly important ways, and then sort of transverse the leadership of the Jewish people, right, being at the head of the Jewish people as they go through their transformation from slaves to a nation, which is, of course, the time period that we find ourselves in right now, right? Commemorating sort of that from Pesach to Shavuot moment of transforming from slaves to a nation. And so I thought it would be fun to look at their relationship and think about how it begins. What's also sort of complicated about their relationship is that God is involved. God sort of sets the, which is not always, I mean, we all know that we're all divine, thank God, and we can relate to our siblings as divine, but it's a little less present in our lives. And there's something very fascinating about what it means for God to get involved in a sibling relationship and how does that actually affect them? That's sort of where we're gonna go, okay? Along with reading some of the most delicious midrashim that exist. That would be my plug. Okay, team, how's everyone doing? Can you just show me with your thumbs how we're doing? Everyone okay? Everyone good? Show me your thumbs, show me your thumbs. Anyone not okay? Anyone not clear? Anyone have questions, needs, requirements? Okay, so in the chat, I'm seeing that there's some people who still don't have source sheets or can't open. So can we take care of those people to make sure that they can open their source sheets? My amazing moderators and producers of this amazing event, because you're the greatest. So we're gonna, Janine and Francine, we are gonna try and take care of you before we go off. Please make sure, because when you go to, we're gonna break out into Chavruta, because that's what we do. We're a Pardes and we do Chavruta, right? In case we don't know what Chavruta is, my friends, Chavruta is paired learning. I gave you 11 sources and it's gonna be 20 minutes. Obviously, you're not gonna get to them all. I'll tell you which ones we should do. But one person's gonna read out loud. The other person's going to listen. Sorry, I said person, but it's people. Because of Zoom-ness, we're actually gonna do quadrutas, which is 4 people in a group, because some people might not be able to get in and people don't wanna be in a Chavruta. So we're gonna do it with 4s, which is unusual for us. Usually we do 2s, but we'll do 4s. And hopefully now there's a new link up. Please click there. And folks, I want to tell you which texts to look at. Obviously, if you have time to do all 11, matov, but that's not very realistic. And so here's what I want to tell you we have to do. Ready, team? Everybody with me? Yes? Oh, yes? Yes, yes, yes? Okay, so please look at, just glance at source 1 in order to understand source 2. Sources 1 and 2. Source 3. Ready? 1 and 2, 3, 6, 7 and 8, and 9. Not so bad, right? 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. You can do that. You can do it in 20 minutes. You're going to go into coverage for 20 minutes. One person takes a turn reading. There are going to be 4 of you, hopefully. We are going to split you up now.
We're going to send you all into breakout rooms with 3 or 4 people. And you will, you just have to accept going into the breakout room, and you will get a warning when we're coming back together, which will happen automatically. Okay?
I like to say, those of you who know me know, that I like to say, we're in a giant Chavruta now. Chavruta's not over. We're in a giant Chavruta, which means also I'm in Chavruta with you, which means you can, it's always push back. No, Francine, it's great that you talk. We're happy you talk. It's good. It's also for you. Okay, so, okay, team. So hopefully everyone's back now. I think so. I think everyone's back. Are we all back? That's my hope. And again, as somebody, I really believe strongly in interaction and not me just talking. So what we're going to try and do is have you speak, which means you can unmute yourselves. I believe, Shani, can they unmute themselves?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, we
Okay,
can.
There you go. Good. See, 2 excellent demonstrations of being able to unmute yourself. Thank you, team. Excellent work. Which means if you want to speak, raise your hand or unmute yourself. If I see that you've unmuted, I'm going to try hard. For those who have video, I'm going to try hard to be back and forth from the video so that you can, so that I can see. But if for some reason I'm not seeing you, chat me and say, I want to say something, okay? But the way that we're going to try and do it is I'm going to try and pause it a little bit on the Midrash, and then I'll open it, and then we'll go back to the text and open, sort of try and do that. We have 44 minutes left. We're going to try and
we might just note to not unmute yourself until you're ready to say something, just in case there's background noise which gets in the way.
Right. Thank you, David. Thank you. That's right. Please do not unmute yourselves until you want to talk. Okay. So we'll start with Moshe and Miriam. Again, this is like a ridiculous thing. I hope you noticed how ridiculous it was. I tried to boil their relationships down and their whole characters down to 1 midrash per character. It's not fair. It's not right. And also there's still too many, and we're still not going to get through even all the things on this sheet. So just know this is just the beginning of the conversation. There's myriads of midrashim on all of these characters, and midrash upon midrash, certainly Moshe, right? And it's important to note that. I'll tell you why I curated these. I'll share that thinking with you. So here we are, my friends. Source 1 on your pages, Shmot Bet, before we even meet. Sorry, that's untrue. Just kidding. We meet Moshe for the first time, and we meet his parents and his sister, okay? And we have a lot here. A person goes from the house of Levi and marries a Levite woman, and they have a child, and when they see how beautiful, she hides him, but she couldn't hide him anymore, right? Obviously, this is because of the decree of Paro. So I'm just going to ask someone to mute themselves because I'm back. Thank you. She can't hide him anymore. This is obviously because of the decree of Paro to kill the sons, the male children, right? And we're told here in Pasuk Daled, verse number 4, and his sister stationed herself at a distance. She goes to learn what would befall him, right? She goes to position herself, to stand, merachok, at a distance, to know what will happen to this baby, okay? The Midrash picks up on this pasuk of her standing at a distance, and says, why does she stand back? And this, apparently, the rabbis believe that this is the first moment of prophecy of Miriam, okay? Miriam has, not this moment where she's watching her brother, but actually she had that earlier, before her brother was ever born. She knew that her parents were going to have a child who was going to save Israel, okay? So it seems to me that Miriam has this prophecy before Moshe is born. When Moshe was born, the whole house was filled with light. Her father rose and kissed her on the head. He said to her, right, my daughter, Biti, nitkaimat nevuatech, your prophecy has come true, right? And then, however, when they had to put him into the Nile, her mother rose and struck her on the head. I'm going to confess something now, my friends. A little back, what's it called? When you, I don't remember what it's called, but backstage to let you know that actually the Gemara version of this has her father hitting her on the head. And I found that somehow, for some reason, I don't know why, more problematic. And so I picked the Midrash that had her mother hitting her on the head. We can unpack that later. But in any event, her mother hits her on the head and says, where is your prophecy now? Okay, you said we're going to have this child who saves the Jewish people. Now we have to put him into the Nile. Where is your prophecy? And therefore, she went to go find out not what would become of this child, not her child, but her brother, this child, but actually what would happen to her nevuah, which is amazing. What does it mean? That's her concern seems to be about was I right or was I wrong? Not what's going to happen to my little brother. Is he going to live or die? Which is sort of an interesting what? And then if that wasn't crazy enough, okay? I mean, each line of this, we could spend a whole hour unpacking, but if that wasn't crazy enough, this is the part of the Midrash I think is, I hope I want to hear what you have to say so much, what came up in Chavruta, what comes up for you now, but this is the amazing part, I think, of the Midrash. The Rabbanan Amrim, and the rabbis say, Kol ha-pasuk hazeh al shem ruach HaKodesh ne'amar. This is not about Miriam, this pasuk, but rather God. Rather the divine, rather I would argue perhaps the Shekhinah, okay, which is amazing. I mean, I hope you're falling off your chairs, God forbid. But for me, I read that, I'm like, what? Wait, what happens here? That actually the pasuk sounds like it's talking about Miriam, and certainly the earlier version of this Midrash, the earlier piece of this Midrash is talking about Miriam and her nevuah. And then we move on to her prophecy, and then we move on to, just kidding, the whole pasuk is actually talking about God. God stood from afar, right? Achoto is about God being a sister, right? Da'at as being God giving knowledge, right? Each piece of this is actually referring to not Miriam the character, but God the character. Okay, so help me, my friends, please help me out here. I need to understand.
Well, I think in one way that takes away, I mean, in one way that's like, wow, that's amazing. It's like a whole metaphor for God, fantastic. But another way, it sort of like takes away like Miriam the prophetess as well. Like, okay, forget the prophetess, she doesn't exist. It's all God. So forget all the beauty of that.
We don't see it as that. Sorry.
I agree. I have to agree. I mean, I don't think there's any evidence in the text that it's Shekinah, according to the rabbis. In the Zohar, probably, yes, this would be the Shekinah. But I don't see it being the Shekinah according to what the rabbis say, because they're so male-oriented. So I do see it as taking it away from Miriam and giving it to God, which I don't like either. But if it were the Zohar and it was the Shekinah, I'd be absolutely right on.
Okay, so I think it's fascinating to notice that the rabbis, I agree that they're willing to, Heather, I see you, don't worry, that it's fascinating to notice. I mean, we could see this as like the men are taking the power from the women. I think you could see that, but I also see this differently as Miriam could be God, right? What does it mean that a prophetess, right, is actually standing there And she, in her essence, is the Shekhinah or is God. I mean, it's a very fascinating, and what I really want to get to, and this is a new pedagogy tool I've used where I give the whole class away at the beginning. What I really want to get to is that each of these characters, Aaron, Moshe, and Miriam, are simultaneously siblings and also divine. I mean, we all are also divine, but it seems to have a unique relationship with the divine, embodying the divine, being human, being divine, transversing that very interesting dynamic. And you're watching that, I think, play out here in the Midrash. Heather, go ahead.
So I know that you got what other people are saying. I see it as Miriam being a prophetess because instead of giving the words that are through the other people, God is seeing it through her eyes. And so it's still that aspect of her being the being, but all of a sudden not the words through the eyes. And it's a different way of looking at the prophetess.
Beautiful. Love that. That there's something about specifically how we see things. And I want to notice here that perhaps what's going on, Heather, I think this is connected to what you're saying. It's not exactly what you're saying, but I think it's connected, which is that perhaps what we're saying here is there is a quality of Miriam that is also a quality of the divine. I love this idea that Miriam can impact the divine, that God can see the world through Miriam's eyes. I love that. And I want to just sort of posit right now that the divine quality, if you will, that Miriam is bringing down here, besides seeing, which I love, right, that her job is to see what would happen, right, and to know what would happen, there's also a piece here of her being protective, right? Her job is to protect. And what's fascinating is her prophecy does not protect. Her standing at the side protects. And so I just keep that in your mind, that Miriam's sort of quality is protection. Okay, I have Beatrice, Francine. I'm going to keep scrolling. Beatrice, Francine. Other people want to speak? Unmute yourselves just so I can see. Don't talk yet. Don't speak yet because I want to go Beatrice, Francine, but just tell me. Raise your hand if you want to speak. Okay, Beatrice, then Francine. Go ahead, Beatrice.
It's bracha.
Sorry.
So
Bracha.
the thing of her standing from the distance, that's very similar to Hashem, who we think is not so much there for us, but really is. So I like that kind of combination, and also that she took initiative, because you don't see that her mom told her, go and see how your brother is doing. She took initiative to be there for him.
Right. Beautiful, beautiful. Love that, right? She's certainly very empowered being. Excellent. Francine.
Oh, well, I put it on the chat already. Do you hear me? No?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, you're doing great.
It's just, what struck me is that if it's God, then God doesn't know what's going to happen either. So is it all dependent on human behavior? So is God's a sort of like us, waiting to see what will happen? So
right.
I don't know what to make of that.
I love that.
And also the reference to God as female, that it is a female representation of God, in female form, whether it's Miriam or anyone. It's just not the usual he, right. It's a she. That's God. God is a she, and she is God, goddess, whatever.
Beautiful,
so
beautiful. Yeah,
that's very cool.
Love. So great. So I just want to, just to go back over what Francine said, I just want to think, I think it's interesting. The question of whether God knows or not is interesting. I think the rabbis are interested in saying God does know, which is then interesting, because then is it only because the end seems to be, right, that we say for the Lord is a God of knowledge, right? So she has to stand there to know what will happen, but God knows perhaps, but maybe not. I want to keep your read alive because it's a very interesting question. Someone mentioned in the chat, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing who, that it's actually God lets us have our own free will. Danielle said, yeah, it's not that God doesn't know, but that God is allowing for the free will piece here, allowing for Bat Paro eventually to save Moshe. Fantastic, love it all. In terms of the gender piece, it's very interesting that the Midrash here seems to go back and forth. Someone said it's a he, it's a she, so it actually seems to be and it's very actually fascinating to notice that Achoto is Chochmah. There's something interesting happening there about wisdom and knowledge. Okay, we have 3 more Midrashim to get through, so let's go. But before that, Yehudit, you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yes, we have, my husband and I, we have a comment that if you take this piece with the next one, where you will be a God for Aaron, So this is basically now Miriam is a god in a way for Moshe. So this is the same plane on the different layers.
Yes, yes. I think it's so interesting, right, my friends? Who is playing God here? To whom? Is fascinating. So, so interesting and going to be, I think, critical. Okay, excellent, amazing. So let's go on to source number 3, my friends, which is not a midrash, it's the Tanakh. And what we're learning here is very interesting, right? Moshe's protest at being chosen to lead the people is that the people won't listen to him, right? I am not a person of words. Lo ish dvarim anochi. I'm not a person of words. I don't know how to speak. Don't pick me. I'm the wrong choice, right? And of course, there's a long back and forth there between God and Moshe and God. And eventually, God gives in. After getting angry, God gives in, and the sort of way in which God gives in here, right, or gives in to Moshe's desire is to say, fine. I'm in verse 13. But Moshe says, please, oh God, make someone else your agent. The Lord became angry with Moshe, and he said, there is your brother Aaron the Levite. He I know speaks readily. He's a great speaker. Even now he is setting out to meet you, and he'll be happy to see you, which, by the way, is fascinating, right? Oh, the beautiful point. Emma Rose here says, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful point. Right, that sibling relations are fraught with projecting parent and godlike qualities onto each other. Love that. That is so gorgeous. How do we feel like our siblings are godlike and the power they have over us? It's amazing, amazing. But Aaron, at least according to the Torah's explanation here, Aaron seems very happy to have Moshe be. There doesn't seem to be a fraughtness between the two of them. Rather, it seems to be quite a supportive relationship. And right here, I know, until we get to Numbers 12, which is where it's all gonna fall apart, we hope. But he said, please, O Lord, make someone else your agent. The Lord became angry. Sorry, I read that already. He I know speaks readily. Even now he is setting out to meet you. He'll be happy to see you. This happiness is very interesting, right? Which is true. We see later that there is, in fact, this joy in seeing one another. You shall speak to him, put the words in his mouth. I will be with you and with him as you speak, and tell both of you what to do. And he shall speak for you to the people, which we notice, by the way, this is why I brought you source 4. Later, he then has the role of speaking to Paro. Thus, he shall serve as your spokesperson, but with you playing the role of God to him, okay? Right? V'hayahu yelecha lepeh, he's going to be your mouth. V'ata tiyelo le'elohim, and you're going to be his God, right? Which is a fascinating thing. If you could imagine the younger brother having that power, which, by the way, is the story again and again and again in the Jewish tradition of the younger, right, overtakes the older each time, which is fascinating in its own conversation, but we have it here again. And so that's a fascinating moment where simultaneously Aaron has 3 qualities. One, he's happy to see Moshe. He is a great speaker. He's the charismatic public speaker, and he is fine, it seems to be, with Moshe being God to him, and actually Moshe having that close relationship with the divine. What is even more fascinating is that source number 6 on your pages, Avot Rabbi Natan understands this to be about Moshe being smart about it. Why does this relationship work? Because effectively, Moshe is very smart. So if you will, look with me at source number 6, right? Chacham eino medaber lifnei misha gadol mimenu b'chokhmah. Right? A wise person does not speak before one who is greater than him in wisdom. This is like a good adage. How do we know this? From Moshe. Moshe was smart. He understood, look, this is my older brother. He's a great speaker. God picked me. I don't really want that. I seem to have no choice, right? I'm in it. And I was still smart enough to say, right? I'm not going to speak in front of my older brother. Okay, I still managed to navigate this relationship in a way. Now it's fascinating because the Torah seems clear that it's fine. The relationship is God, Moshe, Aaron. That's how it is. Aaron's always going to be secondary to Moshe vis-a-vis God. That's the relationship. The Midrash is interested in saying, no, Moshe said, I know this is our dynamic, but I'm going to navigate it in such a way that my older brother, Aaron, repeated all the words that the Eternal had spoken to Moshe. We navigate towards the people. It looks like perhaps we are on the same level. So I just want to talk a little bit about why you think the Midrash is interested in interpreting those psukim in this way. Help me out, team. What do you think? I'm looking for your raised hands now. Emma Rose, go ahead.
I mean, it's almost similar to, like, I mean, so Betsy said, the youngest is often on the path to divine. I want to push back and say that I have an older sister, and that's why I wrote our relationship is fraught with power struggles. But, you know, we have to be able to see the divine in both. Doesn't matter who has what qualities and who has maybe, you know, like I have more spiritual qualities than my sister, but we both are worthy of having access to God and access to godlike qualities, you know, even for Aharon to become the prophet, you know, during a time that Moshe can't. Like, there are always going to be instances when siblings need to rely on each other, and we need to exchange like skills, and we need to like learn to step back and recognize that, like, you know, we're not always right, even though we feel like God is speaking through us, but oh wait, no, like our siblings also have God speaking through them. So I just wanted to just mention that, like, I like how I'm always trying to subvert hierarchies with this God, Moshe, Aharon, and so I think that I'm glad that the Midrash does that and allows, like, for humility, you know, to come through for Moshe.
Yeah, and that's Moshe's great trait, right? Is this humility piece, right? Which I think is not for nothing. That, right? That's actually Moshe. We're going to see it again in Numbers 12. We'll see it explicitly. But this seems to be Moshe's a great moment of humility, and also just brilliant politics. I don't want to lose that, right? It's also about how do I make sure that this relationship is maintained. I know, despite my place in the divine hierarchy, I know my place in the family hierarchy. And that's a very interesting moment where we see those two things playing out. Okay, Alan.
What I wanted to mention is the fact that God tells Aharon to be the mouthpiece for Moshe. He's not asked. So it's admirable that Aharon is happy to do it, and he's really given the task without being asked. So that's what I was kind of admiring about it.
Yafa?
Sorry, hold on a second. I just want to
Lynn.
make sure. One second, Lynn. 1 second. Alan, and then Lynn. But I just want to understand Janine for 1 second. I didn't totally understand. Can I understand you better? What I understand is that you're saying that there was no choice here, actually. People, there's no choice. God says how it's going to be, and that's how it's going to be. But I think what's interesting is that was true in Breshit. Someone talked about breaking Breshit. That was true in Breshit too, and it didn't matter. In other words, God still got involved, and we still, what you're seeing here actually is a maturity on both Moshe and Aaron's, not just what to do, but how I decide to approach. And that is quite fascinating, I think, right? It's particularly Moshe, he was, as we call him, the reluctant leader. To have Aaron there to shore him up is extremely important to him, I think, and really is what makes it successful. But he also has to know that Aaron has feelings. It's not always easy to be the supporting character. So that, I think, is sort of a fascinating. Okay. Alan, then Lynn, and then I know people raised their hands in the chat. Don't take those down. It's Phyllis and Betsy. So we're going Alan, Lynn, Phyllis, and Betsy. Okay, go ahead.
Maybe an additional element. We just saw in the Torah that Aaron is happy and he's running towards him. We never were told that Moshe is happy to see him. So, so far it's one-sided relationship. Moses has to do his part for the relationship will work.
Right.
So, is it my turn now?
Just a quick reminder for folks, if you're not speaking, I recommend that you mute yourself.
So the text in Exodus sums it up, because in chapter 6 it says, "Hu Aharon u'Moshe," it was Aaron and Moses, to whom God Aharon. The word "who" is a singular pronoun, male pronoun, and it identifies Moshe and Aharon. And at the end, Aharon and Moshe, they're interchangeable at that point. They're partners. The text is seeing that.
Good, I love
partners
that.
in this redemption.
Yeah.
Sure, Nuni. I'm just going to help you prepare the boxes.
Okay. So I think that's a great point, Lynn. I love that they become equals at a certain point. And yet, I just want to say, and yet, they actually never do become equals.
No, you're right.
So it's like,
You're right.
what's interesting about those two, and it's actually an amazing thing because they share power. It's an amazing example of sharing power and taking turns with their power, but they never become equals. That fundamental, Moshe being Aaron's Elohim, is fundamental to that relationship. And you're right that they also take turns. So it's a really interesting, and I want to explore that just a drop more when we get to the next section of sources. But it's a great point, Lynn. Thank you. Phyllis Rosen, you wanted to talk, and then we're going to go to Betsy. Go ahead, Phyllis. Hi, Phyllis.
Hi, Yafa. Okay. My question was, when Moshe was speaking to himself, can I speak in place of my older brother while he is standing right there? And then he told Aaron to speak. And then obviously Aaron spoke. Now they're speaking before a great crowd of people. And it seems to me that Moshe actually gives up some power, by having Aaron speaking, and he thinks about that, and I said in the Chavruta, it kind of reminds me of Aaron will be speaking, and Moshe will be in a little box, doing sign language. That was the picture that came to my mind. That was the comment.
It's interesting. I actually think about it more as like, Aaron's up there on stage, but Moshe's in his ear being like, okay, then say this, then say this. It's like an earpiece, right? Here's what God said, here's what God said. So it's a great question how you visualize. I love it.
It's definitely a ceding of power.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think it's an interesting thing because the Midrash picks up on that and says, that's wise. Wisdom means, whether you like it or not, you're smart. Joey, you asked earlier, I don't want to lose that point. You said, well, how could he be humble if it's that manipulation? But I think there is a humility in the seeding. I don't know. We're very suspicious today of people being manipulative, but I actually think being political and smart doesn't mean you're not humble. It actually is about recognizing your humility, right? Like there's actually real humility in saying, this is not my moment. And that's okay, And it's good politics, but it's also real humility, I would argue. I agree. I'm totally fine with pushback. It's great. Okay, Betsy, and then we're moving on to Aaron's moment of humility. Betsy.
Sure. I just want to say that I think it's very important that the Aaron-Moshe relationship is a model for God and Moshe's relationship. So as it's set up, that Moshe allows himself to be funneled or channeled through Aaron, that is because we're seeing him, he's being modeled as having the ability, and I do think it's a great ability because not that many of us have it, to be the spokesperson, as it were, the mouthpiece for the divine. And that's what we're seeing. It's being configured here for us to really get it.
Beautiful, beautiful. I want to expand that to Miriam also. Maybe we're seeing here another, right? Both Moshe's siblings, the relationship they have with the divine is actually being a mouthpiece. Whereas Moshe's relationship is actually being the one in relationship, direct, right? The closest Navi we have, the closest relationship with the divine is Moshe's, right? Whereas his siblings too have real access to the divine. It just seems to be as being sort of perhaps spokespeople rather than divinely spoken to. Although they are spoken to at different points. I'm not saying they're not, but I think it's an interesting caricature to understand them. And hopefully we're going to get there in 1 second to understand how that goes. Okay. Now this is really the Midrash. I promised you that the Midrash that I wanted to really teach about is this one because it's amazing and I don't think it gets that much play. And I wish it got more play because it is absolutely awesome. Okay. Greatest Midrash of all time. Ready, my friends? Which is this moment. It's Roman numeral 3, sources 7 and 8. Okay. We have this moment where we have done Chanukat Mishkan. We've actually done, the Mishkan has been built and we have consecrated it. And here it is, Yom HaShmini, the 8th day. And we're about to do the work. And Aaron's about to offer up his chatat. And it's such a powerful, amazing moment. And we're told that Aaron has this moment of hesitancy. Okay? And the way we know this, my friends, comes from Vayikra Tet Pasuk Zion, Leviticus 9:7. Moshe says to Aaron, come close to the altar. Yomer Moshe Aaron, Krava HaMizbeach, come to the Mizbeach. Now, now you could just say like, okay, so what? Moshe is saying it's time. But no, Chazal, the rabbis are interested in saying this is a moment where Aaron has to be told directly by Moshe, this is your moment, buddy. You've been waiting all this time. It's been my time. This is your time, right? You're going to do something that I actually can't do. Come on. Which, by the way, is fascinating because I don't know if we needed to read those psukim that way. It could have just, right? We could have just understood it. Moshe saying, it's your turn, let's go. But actually, along comes the Sifra and says, and there's this very disturbing gendered mashal, which I want to just point out is quite disturbing, but interesting, right? Mashal domeh, what is this an analogy to? A mashal of a king of flesh and blood married to a woman. She was ashamed in his presence, whereupon his sister came and said, why did you come? Why did you come to marry him? Was it not only for the sake of ministering to the king? Embolden yourself and serve the king. Similarly, Moshe says to Aaron, Achi, which is great. Achi, okay? Which doesn't happen that often, and it's a great moment for us Israelis, right? Achi, what's going on, buddy? Right? How you doing? This is your moment. My brother, right? This is your moment. Why were you chosen except for to serve God? Gather your strength, right? Embolden yourself. Right? Come do your service, okay? V'yesh omrim, and there's another understanding of this, which says, Amar lo Moshe, Achi, mimenu tamit yareh. You're scared of doing this, and why was he scared? Because he perceived the karnei hamizbeach, the horns of the altar, as, guess what, my friends? The horns of the Egel HaZahav, right? So this is a moment where we're watching Aaron say, holy cow. No pun intended. That was actually not on purpose, I swear. Oh my goodness, I am someone who has sinned. I have sinned, and I have caused others to sin. And now I'm going to be the Kohen Gadol. Now I'm going to offer the Chatat. What? Right? Which is so real, my friends. Like, whether you understand this as Aaron having doubt in general in his duties, or because of his past, he stops. We're watching an amazing moment where the Midrash does a beautiful thing. If before, and this I want to just give my chavruta, Rabbi Ben Berger, major credit for putting this into my mind, because we read this Midrash together in our chavruta, and he helped me understand this, that actually, if you will, until this point, Aaron has been Mr. Support, Mr. Mouthpiece to Moshe, and this is the moment when it's the moment of truth for Aaron, where the Midrash reads it as Moshe having Aaron's back, right? Which is an amazing, amazing idea that actually said, come on, Achi, it's okay. We're going to be okay. This is your moment. Yes, we all had problematic pasts. And yes, we all have imposter syndrome moments, but this is your moment. Come on, Achi, come do your work, right? Don't let those very real human pieces of ourselves stop us from doing the work for which we were chosen, which is just, it's so amazing. Like Moshe convinces him with words, which is what we say he's like, has a hard time with. And I just love this Midrash. Really, I wanted to do this Midrash for 2 hours with you. But there's so much in here that's so gorgeous and so beautiful about siblings. And when we need support in our moments of tremendous challenge. Now, it's not over. Things go downhill, unfortunately. So it's not over yet. But I know people want to speak, so I want to see your hands. I have David Saperstein.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe it's not about the past or the present, but the future. We read about Miriam's prophecy. We know about Moshe's prophecy. Could this be that Aaron knows what's going to happen next to his kids? That's my question. So that the hesitancy is, if I go ahead, the next thing that's going to happen is this is going to have a bad ending because of his own prophecy. So does the prophecy run in the family, essentially?
I'm just trying to understand a little, because I'm not sure I do. But you're saying perhaps he knows this somehow?
Right. That the hesitancy in acting is because he's envisioning what's going to happen. If he goes forward, this is his last moment to kind of stop the train. if he goes forward, the next thing that's going to happen is his two sons are going to offer their strange offerings, and he doesn't want to do that, but he's kind of spurred along. Maybe he doubt. Maybe that's part of the imposter syndrome. Maybe that's true. So that's my only question. I mean, in looking at the prophecy within the family, Miriam has it, Moshe has it. What about Aaron?
Right, and I think that is actually $1 million question there, David. And I think I think Aaron has this interesting thing where he's very close to the divine, and yet doesn't actually get to hear directly from the divine. We don't actually necessarily see him. It's a very interesting question, whether sometimes God speaks to Moshe and Aaron. Does that mean only Moshe? And then Moshe says it to Aaron, right? It's an interesting question whether Aaron has, and the Psukim, I would argue, go back and forth, whether Aaron is himself a Navi or not. I think it's interesting. Okay, I'm so sorry, I have 10 minutes left. We still have to do the major breakdown. It's an interesting question whether, I hear you, both David, you're saying this and Joey's saying this about perhaps he knows what's gonna happen to his sons, but I don't necessarily see that, why he would think. I'm curious why he would. In other words, I don't see it in the Psukim, and I don't see it in the Midrash. So I'm just curious where that comes from. Maybe he knows their character and he knows the danger of the power of the Kehuna. But it seems to be that at least the Midrash is interested in saying this is Aaron's own fear, right? Exactly, Aaron's own stage fright, which is completely normal, right? Exactly, and I actually think it's a difference between speaking and acting. And then Aaron's avodah, Aaron's work is actually the action of being a Kohen and not the speaking, right? Which is very, very, very fascinating. Yeah, maybe this is a moment of humility. And in fact, the Sfat Emet, I'll just share this with you because you should go read it. And if you want it, I can send it to you. Write me an email. My email's at the top of the page. I'll send you this gorgeous, the Sfat Emet, Second Ger Rebbe, writes beautifully about the humility piece for Aaron here. It's definitely, and the idea of being embarrassed and what it means to feel shame about our past and how to overcome our shame. Gorgeous, gorgeous Torah here. That is really, really worth learning. Okay, so I have 10 minutes left. So here we go, my friends. Numbers 12. Numbers 12 is actually the moment where we see our siblings together and things are actually terrible. Let's talk about the breakdown. This is a moment of, we've said beautiful things, and Miriam's his protector, and Aaron is his mouthpiece, and Moshe is Aaron's cheerleader, and it's gorgeous, and it's great, and sometimes it is great, sometimes our siblings are the greatest, and sometimes it's the hardest relationship in certain ways, right? And actually what we're watching here in Numbers 12 is a moment of breakdown, okay? Wherein Miriam and Aaron speak against Moshe, and we're told here because of the Cushite women he had married, right? The Psukim, and it's a very big question. I want to just say, again, to boil it down to two Midrashim, it's like a criminal, it's criminal. And there's so much to say about this. What were they talking about, right? Ki isha kushit lakach. It seems that the shot of the Psukim is, one, he married a Cushite woman. Two, has the Lord spoken only through Moshe? Has he not spoken through us as well? Which we know, right? Right? We know that he has, right? We know that both Miriam and Aaron have had moments where God has spoken through them. Whether Aaron needed Moshe in between, we don't always know, but there seems to be a divine, right? And they're claiming that. Has he not spoken through us as well? Right now. And it's very interesting. Who overhears them? So fascinating. I'm not number 12. I'm sorry. I'm number 9. This is verse number 9, not 12. Apologies. It's just Numbers 12. Sorry. I should have said, I said number 12. No, 9, number 9. Numbers 12. Okay, so who overhears them talking actually? God, which is amazing. I mean, for those of us who have to, I know it's not none of you, but for me, I have to work a little bit on my Lashon Hara traits. This is just teaching us, you know, who's listening? God always, okay? Even to Aaron and Moshe. Very, very interesting here, right? God's listening. And actually God is the one who calls them out and sort of makes this an issue, which, by the way, is fascinating, right? Why? Why do we need to, which there's a lot here about familial relationships and God being like, I'm not letting this stand, right? There's, whether it's in defense of Moshe or whether it's just, this is unhealthy for the reason, right? I need to make sure you guys are okay, right? Which is its own fascinating thing. And God is very, very angry, defends his servant Moshe, right? And here's my relationship with God, with Moshe is different than yours, right? This is where God differentiates between God's relationship with them and God's relationship with Moshe. Okay, makes it extremely clear, which seems to be one of the claims earlier, at least on the pshat, simple understanding of this text, is God speaks to us too. You're not greater than us, Moshe. And then, of course, God's saying, no. Yeah, Moshe's greater. We have a unique relationship. It actually is different than my relationship with the two of you. Okay, now, I want to get to the prayer in just 1 second, but before we get to the prayer, what is amazing and interesting, my friends, it's so gorgeous and beautiful. Look at this midrash. Source number 10, the Sifrei here on Bamidbar comes along and says, what is Miriam bothered by? And what is she bothered by with Aaron? And Miriam and Aaron began to talk against Moshe as she initiated, okay, but well, that's a whole other conversation about women's speech, lots to unpack there. How did Miriam know that Moshe had separated from his wife Tzipporah, right? What they're disturbed by is not that he married Tzipporah, this Cushite woman, but that he separated, he left her, right? Which, by the way, there's so much, I just want to say, there's so much to talk about here about what it means to marry someone, bring her into the community, and then to abandon her, which is what Miriam is deeply disturbed by. I mean, that's an answer. Miriam was with Tzipporah when it was told to Moshe, Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp. When Tzipporah heard that, she exclaimed, woe to their wives that they have anything to do with prophecy, for they will separate from their wives just as my husband separated from me. So what happens here, my friends, is we're watching, it's amazing moments, right? Where the Midrash imagines sister and sister-in-lawhood, which is very interesting. We don't have that many sister-in-law relationships. It's actually very interesting to notice that the Midrash is, and Miriam's response to Tzipporah's cry of, oh, great, yeah. I don't know if this resonates with her. Like, oh, great. Oh, yeah, your husband became a rabbi. Good luck ever having a personal life. Right? That's what basically just happened here. Okay? Or your wife became a rabbi. Good luck having a personal life. Right? That's actually a fascinating thing that's happening here. Right? When you have a spiritual calling, how does it overtake the personal relationship in a way that, by the way, Miriam and Aaron seem to not have had? Right? That actually their level of divine relationship was different, and therefore they didn't have the need to separate. And therefore, right, their critique is Moshe is so holy that he can't be a human anymore, can't live in this world, right, and can't be with his wife. But Miriam, it seems to be, and here's what I would claim from this midrash, Miriam again is in the role of protector, right? If she begins Moshe's life as his protector, when she's watching him forego his personal life, which is what's happening here. She's watching her brother let go of his personal life, and she is worried. She's worried about Tzipporah, and she's worried about her brother. That's my read of this, based on this midrash. She's upset, and she's like, look, my whole thing was about protecting this kid his whole life, and now I'm watching him make this mistake, right? So it's actually not a critique of Tzipporah at all. It's a critique of Moshe for leaving her. Okay, and then God's response makes sense. No, you don't understand. This is a unique relationship. You think you understand. You guys understand at this level, but me and Moshe have a different relationship, which is in of itself interesting and problematic. I have 3 minutes left. Woo! Okay, ready, team? So here's the last thing I want to say. Which is, and Aaron says to Moshe, I'm in the end of source number 9, the bold, and I want you to notice something, which is when the God leaves, Moshe now has tzarat. Aaron turned to Miriam. He saw that she was stricken with scales, which really is tzarat, this skin disease. And guess what happens next, my friends? Aaron says a prayer. Aaron prays. But what's amazing about Aaron's prayer is, who does he pray to? Moshe. Right? That's, by the way, $1 million question about why Miriam gets punished and not Aaron. Fascinating, very important. Tzarichi and Gadol, for next time, maybe next year we do together. Very, very important. I would recommend looking at all those commentaries on that, because it's important, and there's some problematics and also very important to notice. But look what happened, my friends. And Aaron said to Moshe, and he says a prayer, right? Adoni, which is very close to Adonai, right? God. Okay, and why is that? Because we know that the hierarchy is Aaron, Moshe, God. So it's very fascinating. Moshe does not pray to Hashem there. I'm sorry. Aaron does not pray to Hashem, rather goes to Moshe and says, hey, my master, which there again, we have this ego moment, right? Where he is extremely humble and humbles himself to Moshe and says, my master, right? Al na tashek aleinu chatat asher no'alnu v'asher chatanu, right? Oh my Lord, account not to us the sin which we committed in our father. Look at this. Let her not be as one dead who emerges from his mother's womb with half his flesh eaten away. Okay, lots of commentary on this, tons. But just to notice, this is an interesting thing to me, and Rashi comments on this also, that actually Aaron brings up the womb, i.e., we all came out of the same womb. And yes, you have a closer relationship with God, and that means something special and unique for you. But don't forget about we're all from the same womb. Don't let your sister, and that's a very fascinating moment, right? Wherein Aaron is saying to Moshe, don't forget, yes, you have a unique relationship, of course you do, and you are my God, if you will. You're Adoni, you're my master. But you don't get to forget about the fact that we all came out of the same womb. By the way, Aaron's prayer, 2 psukim. Moshe's prayer, 5 words, right? Because this is a moment where, right, important, where this is a moment wherein Moshe is not a man of words, but he turns to God. But it's Ak Moshe Adonai Lemor, El never fan Elam. Right? So Moshe cries out to God saying, oh God, heal her, right? Which is an amazing, amazing moment of him being a pure brother, right? Yeah, Joey, I just want to say in terms of the male language, it's very fascinating. And there actually seems to be, the commentaries here say, should we fix the text? Is the text wrong? Should it have been plural male to include all of them? So it's a really interesting moment actually in the text where the medieval commentaries here go kind of crazy about whether or not that's correct. Should have been ima, right? Why is it? So that's a very interesting moment. But I just want to say, and with this I'm going to conclude, and then I'm happy to stay on. Do we have some time? Rabbi Shani, can I go on? No, just kidding. We can't. But
2 minutes. Yeah.
2 minutes. I'll just close, and then people can write me emails or find me elsewhere. I'm available. Happy to talk. But I'm just going to close with this thought, which is, it's a very fascinating thing to notice that each one of them has a unique relationship with the divine, and each one of them has a unique relationship with one another, where Miriam is the protector, Aaron is Moshe's mouth, and Moshe seems to be Aaron's support. And this is the moment where all 3 of those converge into remembering, no matter how close you get to the divine, and no matter what special relationship you have with the divine, you don't ever stop being womb mates, if you will, with your siblings. And I think that the text is saying here to remind us of that. There are real power dynamics, there are real struggles, there are incredible opportunities with our siblings, and in many ways, we need our siblings, and we need to remember that our sibling relationships are equal to our relationship with the divine. And with that, I'm going to stop.